Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is yours truly, Stuart Andrew Alexander, back again with another impact-making guest. Now, today's guest is a CEO of an international consultancy specializing in the neuroscience of workplace learning. He is the architect and owner of the NeuroLink brand and business system that consists of various brain profile assessments to determine learning potential and brain training solutions to optimize brain performance. He has published various leading articles and books on the neuroscience of learning and wellness. And with regard to the neuroscience of learning, he is one of the most recognized authorities and sought-after speakers in the world today. And as an international motivational speaker and trainer, he has presented papers at numerous international conferences and events and has presented at the ATD International Conference and Exposition since the year 2000. He has also been a coach to the African kings and queens, as well as being a guest on many radio and television talk shows across the globe, and hosts his own television show, Brain Crag, in other words, Brain Power. And he's here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us about some of the problems and some of the obstacles, misconceptions and pitfalls surrounding the people he helps the most. So please, let's welcome him to the show, CEO of NeuroLink, Dr. André Vermeulen.
Hi, Stuart. It's really nice being on the show, and thanks for having me.
You are so welcome, Andre. I've been looking you up online and following all these interesting videos that you have out on YouTube. So I'm really excited, and the listeners are really excited to hear what you have to share with us today. So with that said, Andre, let's just set things up for the rest of the interview. Could you briefly just describe who is your perfect prospect? Or in other words, who is it that you help?
You know what, Stuart, we really try to assist business in optimizing the brain performance of the workforce so that the workforce can be in a position to outthink, outlearn, and outcreate their competition. But then also we assist universities in optimizing the students' performance so that they can really learn and handle volumes of information. We assist schools with accelerating the learning skills of learners at school and assist parents to create the right development opportunities for their children to help them improve their performance as well.
Okay, so you work with a variety of different clients. That is clear, but what are some of the common obstacles that prevent them from achieving the desired outcome that you've just mentioned, Andre?
You know, Stuart, most people have an understanding that inside of them there's some unlocked potential, but most of us are not really accurately aware of what that potential entails. So in the first place, people are not always accurate about the potential of their brain and that it's actually capable of learning, thinking, and creating anything. But then also, we are not accurately aware about our own uniqueness, how our own design empowers us to contribute and add value in the world in a very unique way. So a lack of awareness and understanding ourselves, that's the first thing. But then there are also many other things that we lack in, and that is we lack, for instance, brain fitness. We lack appropriate skills to optimize performance. We lack appropriate coping skills to help us not lose control over certain brain areas. We lack proper work-life sleep balance, and because of that, we're not sleeping like we're supposed to, and that has a negative impact on your brain performance. Then your diet, for most 21st century people, their diet negatively impact their brain performance also. So at the end of the day, there are many. It's a lack not just only of awareness about myself, but also the factors that impact my brain performance.
Okay, Andre, I mean, you just spoke a little bit about the lack of brain fitness and the consequence of too much stress and having a negative mindset. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I just want to shine the spotlight on that, is the lack of sleep. Can you just go a little bit deeper into that, and how does that affect people who are wanting to achieve the outcomes that your company helps them do?
Yeah. You know what, Stuart? The challenge for 21st century people nowadays is there's an explosion of information, and therefore we are working longer and harder. And therefore, also people start sleeping less and less in order to try and juggle everything and keep all the balls in the air. But at the end of the day, sleep is like you can make a comparison between sleeping and to recharge a cell phone. If you do not recharge your cell phone, you cannot just use it. At some stage, the battery will be flat and you cannot use it any further. And that is why we have to sleep, because when we sleep, we produce vital chemicals called neurotransmitters that help us to transmit messages between cells, but it also strengthens the immune system, it heals the body, and it also re-energizes the body. And if we do not have a proper sleeping pattern, and included in that sleeping pattern a deep, dreamless period of sleep, then we do not have sufficient time to produce those vital neurotransmitters, and that will then negatively impact your brain performance. So, healthy sleeping patterns for about 7.5 to 8 hours per day, of which about 4.5 to 5 hours of that day should be a deep, dreamless sleep, is a vital necessity for 21st century people to really be in a position to think, learn, and perform very well in the workplace.
So, Andre, what about the people, and I'm one of these people myself, I can't sleep for longer than 5, 6 hours. If I sleep any longer than that, I wake up all miserable, my back's aching, I just don't feel good. My sweet spot is about 5, 6 hours, and I'm a night bird. I go to bed late, 1, 2 o'clock, and then I'm up by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm just going all day, taking breaks in between. What about those people who they just don't have that system, that cycle, that sleep cycle that you mentioned, 7, 8 hours. What about those? What do you say to those people?
Yeah, you know what? So I think what you are verbalizing there, Stuart, is the story of many and maybe even most adults in the workplace. And my response to that is, although your sleeping patterns differ from person to person, ideally the benchmark would be that it has to somewhere be between 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep for most people. Now, the challenge is often our lifestyles have conditioned the human mind to get used to only, let's say, 5 or 6 hours of sleep, if that is what your lifestyle dictates. And your brain helps you to adapt and adjust to your environment. So you learn to become used to that, but that does not necessarily mean that that is the ideal situation for your brain to go through all the cleaning processes, the healing processes, and re-energizing processes that you need to medium long term perform extremely well in the workplace. So ideally, what I would suggest in a case like yours, is that one should try and at least see if I can extend my sleeping patterns to at least about a 6 hour sleep instead of 5 hours. But yes, it is true that it differs from person to person. But as a rule of thumb, for most people, it will definitely be around 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. And you need to get that consistently every night, because your brain needs to know that its owner gives me a 7.5 hours period to clean up the whole system, to re-energize, to revitalize, and so forth. But sometimes, if our sleeping patterns are erratic, in other words, one day I sleep 7 hours, another day 8.5, another day only 5, it confuses the brain because I'm not sure how much time my owner gives me to go through all these cleaning processes. And then often I wake up in the middle of a process and I've not completed this whole process. And that's going to have medium to long term. Short term, not a problem. But medium to long term, if it becomes a lifestyle thing, it will impact your energy and often your state of well-being, of mental well-being, profoundly.
Right. So, I mean, I noticed that with my partner. If she does not have at least 8 hours, I mean, her sweet spot is 10 hours.
Yeah,
She cannot function on the next day. She's a mess. And she's a teacher or a vice principal in a school.
yeah,
And if she doesn't have her 8 to 10 hours, forget it. She may as well stay at home in bed and just not do anything. So that's very interesting that you just shine a spotlight on that at least 7-8 hours minimum is the way to go. So
yeah,
I need to work on that. And you've just answered a long time question that I've had. Now I know why I walk with a limp. Okay,
yeah.
so but anyway.
Yeah. Stuart, Einstein said that the creative mind actually needs 9 hours of sleep. So,
Right.
that was just his opinion, and it is now not a scientific fact. But some people do even need more sleep than that. And obviously, Einstein was also of the opinion he was a great man, but he was
Mm.
also of the opinion that that greatness could not feature very well if he didn't get in the sleep he had to get.
Okay, point taken. Thank you so much for sharing that, Andre. Moving on, Andre, when you're out there speaking with the people that you help, I'm sure that you've come across some popular misconceptions about the outcome that you provide for those people who are wanting to discover their unique neurological design and optimize their brains for maximum performance so that they can eventually become more emotionally intelligent. So could you just share one or two of those popular misconceptions that you come across on a regular basis, please?
Yeah, we often joke about it and call it neuro hype. There are a lot of misconceptions in the world out there about the brain and about learning styles and so forth. And, one of the most popular ones that I often hear about is people saying we only use 5% or 10% of the brain. And that's not true. Your brain, if we really challenge ourselves, and we really learn and we process information effectively. We try and use as much as we can. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but it is not true that we only utilize 5% of the brain. And if you look at that statement, it was actually more about the amount of connections that people in general make. And if you compare that with what is possible, but for most people, we definitely try to use much more of the brain than just 5%. And then another thing that, a misperception in the world is that, you've got to be smart in order to be successful. And the idea is, I would rather want people to reframe that and say, all people are smart, but we are smart in different ways. Some people are music smart, like Mozart. Nelson Mandela was people smart and interpersonal smart. That made him a strong leader. Einstein was science smart. So we are all smart, but in different ways. So we do not have to worry about the fact that you have to be intelligent. If intelligence means you need to have high IQ, the world has been changed by many people who has not necessarily had high IQ. To give you an example, for instance, Nelson Mandela had an IQ of about 122. Now that is a good IQ and it's definitely way above average, but it wasn't superior and it wasn't being a genius. But this man has transformed the South African society and impacted the world profoundly. And then on the other hand, we sometimes have people in jails with very high IQs, and look where that got them. So IQ is not a determiner for success, but it's rather thinking about the ways of being smart. We are all smart, but in different ways, and it is important for people to discover how they are smart and then optimize that intelligence potential they have and uh, um, align it with developing appropriate skills. To give you an example, if I am linguistic or language smart, I have potential, but now potential plus nothing gives me nothing. But if I'm language smart and I learn appropriate presentation skills, communication skills, negotiation skills, and so forth, then I really become a good communicator and maybe even an instructor or motivational speaker. So potential plus appropriate skill in that area where you are smart is what really makes you effective in this world and what makes you competent. And the more you develop that, the better you become at it until you become good, you become great, and you eventually become excellent in your own unique field of being smart. And that is very important for me, that I believe that people should not have a misconception that, you need to be intelligent, meaning with that a high IQ in order to be successful. So that's very important. That's one of the misconceptions, that people have, this idea that one size fits all, and it's only a certain way of intelligence that makes us successful.
Mm. That's really interesting, Andre. The way how you've just dispelled those myths, and especially the one about we only use 5% of our brain. I mean, I've heard that all my life, and I'll be honest with you, I've never up until this point really questioned it. I've just accepted it. Okay, we only use 5% of our brain. At some stage I've asked myself why, but I've never really dug into the real reasons why. So that is just amazing just to hear it from somebody who is an expert on that particular topic. You also spoke about the IQ not being a determiner for success. Again, that's something that our listeners are going to be saying, hallelujah. I didn't get an IQ. I don't have an high IQ test, but you know something, Andre? I know some people with very low IQ scores,
Yep.
but they're some of the most street smart people
Sure.
that you will ever know, and they're making more money than maybe you and I put together.
Absolutely.
Or they're successful in terms of their health and the relationships. So this thing what you mentioned at the end, potential plus appropriate skill. Do you think there is room for that within the education system for children to learn?
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. This is really our passion, and the work that we do is to assist all people who are responsible for the development of their staff or of children or of students, to help them in the first place discover the unique potential of the students that they are working with, because we all have potential, but we have different types of potential. We're all smart, but in different ways. We all learn, but in different ways. So it's very important for any people developer to first try and understand the potential that they're working with, to try and see the potential that they're working with, and then help these learners acquire the appropriate skills that will change that potential into competence. And if we can get that, we truly empower people. And there is this saying that says that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for one day, but if you teach him the skill how to fish, he feeds himself for a lifetime. And that is a beautiful, argument for empowering people. And if you want to empower people effectively, is there has to be alignment between the skills we expose people to and we teach people and the unique potential that person has. So it always starts by first accurately identifying, how do I learn? How do I think? How do I process information? Who am I? What does my unique neurological design tell me about who I can be? Once I have accurate understanding of that, and I then acquire appropriate skills, that is when I start becoming more of who I could be, and also becoming the best I can be.
So if I was to put that into some kind of mathematical formula, um, would this sound something? Would it sound correct? Potential plus appropriate skill equals competence.
Absolutely so. And then if people keep on practicing what they good at, what they are competent at, they become eventually good at what they do. They keep on reinforcing and practicing and optimizing that skill. They become great. And eventually, if we truly keep on doing what we're good at for a long time and we keep on improving that skill and sharpening the saw there, we become excellent. And that is the road to personal mastery. When we become that artist we were destined to be, just like a Nelson Mandela, over years he has developed himself and reinforced those skills, and it made him a giant of a man and a master of values-driven leadership.
Perfect. I love that. Rome wasn't built in a day, so to speak. So, moving on, Andre. When you are out there speaking with the people that you help, speaking with universities, children in school, or the parents of children in school, and companies, when you're talking with them and you're consulting them, and they turn around and they're kind of thinking, "Hey, Andre, this sounds great, but what is it so good about you? Why should we become your customer?" Can you just expand on that a little bit for us, please, Andre?
Yeah, you know what, Stuart? The first and most important thing is that very often people have a lack of awareness of understanding the power of their brain, and that the key to them becoming more of who they could be lies within themselves. And they need to find that in the first place. So, in our society nowadays, if you look at how people spend their money, it shows you what their priorities are. And even for our listeners listening to this program, my question would be, how much money do you spend in a year on your brain? And then how much money do you spend on your body in terms of food and clothing? So your brain is the greatest asset you are ever going to have. And potential plus nothing gives you nothing. But potential plus appropriate skills gives you competence. And that's where the key lies in you becoming the best you can be. Yet research tells us that people spend much more money on entertainment and on clothing and on food than they would on their brain and at acquiring appropriate skills. Now, the world is exploding with change. And you are going to constantly need to acquire new skills in order to stay relevant and cutting edge. And if I'm not going to constantly invest time and money in acquiring more appropriate skills, that's when I start losing the race, and where I start feeling that I'm not coping or not being the most effective person I can be. So lack of understanding the power of my brain, and also understanding my own value and my own worth and what it is that I have to offer to the world, and also what it is that I need to optimize more, is often what prevents people from becoming the best they could be, and obviously making use of our services.
So when we look at the outcome that you help your clients to achieve, the outcome of optimizing their brains, or their brain performance, and helping them to become more emotionally intelligent, I got one or two questions I just wanted to ask you about that particular outcome. Can I go ahead and do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. If you could just give me some quick bullet point answers to the question, Andre, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So the first one is, what would they gain from optimizing their brain performance so that they become more emotionally intelligent? Sounds like an obvious question, but what do they stand to gain? What's the benefit?
The first thing that money can never buy is absolute fulfillment. When you truly live out who you can be. I have that privilege, Stuart, of living my passion and my purpose. And I understand who I am. I understand my reason for existence. And no money can give me that sense of gratification to live that. And that is what happens when we start identifying our potential accurately and we start taking actions to become more of who that could be. At 30, I believed I couldn't work with people and I couldn't talk to people. And there were some inferiority issues and all sorts of things that I was struggling with. But 23 years later, I live my passion and my purpose. So what the message that I have to share has been my own journey also. That, if you discover really who you are and you optimize that, you get to a place where your life is not about what you have, but it becomes a life of who you are and what the contribution is that you make. And ultimately, that puts you on a purpose journey where money cannot give you any sense of gratification. So I'm not saying money is not important, but I'm saying that money cannot give you a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And this is what you get by pursuing constantly, uh, your own potential and discovering more about who you can be and then doing something about that. So that to me, I think is essential that people should understand that's the most important thing. Obviously, there's more ease with learning. There's being more effective. There's less absenteeism, better health, accelerated learning, working faster and smarter. All those things are also up for grabs. But at the end of the day, becoming who you were destined to be, I believe, is the greatest benefit from really discovering who you are.
Just briefly, with reference to optimizing their brains for maximum performance and being more emotionally intelligent, what would be their emotional reasons for wanting to achieve that? Just briefly, please. Thank you.
Well, you know what? Again, it helps us get fulfillment. It helps us be more emotionally intelligent leaders. It helps us have stronger social bonds with other people and more fulfilled relationships. It helps us to resolve conflict, to communicate and establish strong social bonds with other people. We become more self-aware. We manage ourselves more effectively, and eventually we influence, serve, and inspire others more effectively.
Okay, so you just spoke about what the benefits would be of gaining the knowledge to become more emotionally intelligent and
Yes.
optimizing your brain. You also touched on some of the emotional reasons. Now, on the other hand, what would be some of the logical reasons for wanting to achieve these outcomes that we're addressing right now?
The logical reasons would most definitely be in our world, the world changes very fast. And one of the golden rules in our business is to say that you've got to be in a position, if you want to be competitive, you've got to outthink, outlearn, and outcreate your competition. And that means that from a mental perspective, you need to consistently sharpen the saw, meaning with that acquire new skills that's going to make you impact the world more effectively than the other person who is also applying for the same job or who is also in the same industry or in the same business as you are. You also need to be a person who can find out what is my differentiating factor. How can I do the same thing in a better way, be more effective, work faster and slower? And that's very important for the 21st century worker is to understand what skills do I have that define me and defines me, but also that becomes my differentiating factor that makes me more employable. That's going to make me more competitive. That's going to make me relevant and cutting edge. And I think that is important that people need to look at themselves as a commodity, as a business and say, how can me, PTY Limited, be more effective than I am at the moment so that I can sell more than my competition?
Okay, so now that we know why people would want to achieve the outcome of discovering their unique neurological design and optimizing their brain performance and becoming more emotionally intelligent, and we know what they stand to gain from it and what their emotional reasons and logical reasons are, what would be the consequences of them actually ignoring that opportunity to learn all of these things that we've just discussed?
Yeah, a good question, Stuart. The consequences would be that I'm not going to be competitive. I am not going to have a good quality of life. I'm going to always try and play catch up with other people. I'm going to constantly feel that there's something in me that I'm not developing, or I'm not being the best that I could be. So I'm unfulfilled. And unfortunately, people tend to project. So we project to the world who we are. A negative mind produces a negative life. A positive mind produces a positive life. A positive mind will never produce a negative life, and vice versa. So if we are not these developed people and fulfilled people, that's what we project to our world, into our relationships. That's what we bring to the workplace and to our communities. Except for that, we bring bad feeling. We feel that we're not effective. We become ill. Our lifespan literally can shorten because of a lack of these skills. A simple example, if I just don't sleep right and it becomes like a lifestyle thing over many years, it can shorten my lifespan. It causes depression and all these sorts of things. So the negative results of this, Stuart, can be devastating for people, and life becomes hard and harsh, and it becomes just a survival quest instead of truly having a fulfilled life where I'm truly alive.
Those are quite devastating consequences if one chooses to ignore that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so if those consequences are or can be so dire, why is it that there are some people out there, after you speak with them, you consult with them, and you show them what it is that they need to be doing, how come some of these people still turn around and end up not working with you? They don't buy, they don't invest in themselves and in your products and your services. Why don't those people end up buying from you then, Andre?
I truly believe that one, it is a lack of understanding the benefits, and especially a lack of experiencing those benefits. If I don't know what brain fitness is, but I don't try and learn the skills, I will not have any form of understanding how this is a benefit to me and experiencing the benefits of brain fitness and a good night's sleep and a healthy lifestyle and so forth. So again, it's lack of awareness and understanding this, and lack of those experiences. And I think another thing is a very big portion of society's people are wired very negatively. And as I said just now, a negative mind produces a negative life, and a positive mind produces a positive life. You've got to maintain possibility thinking to constantly push the envelope and say, but there's more. I can improve myself. There has to be more to life than just where I am now. I can even improve myself. Even if things are good for me, I can still improve that any further. Then another thing is, I think people fear what they don't understand or what they don't know. And very often people become stuck in comfort zones where, I have worked with people where a person is acutely depressed, but it's almost become a comfort zone for them. I've become used to this dark place where I am. This is what I know. And, I am so stuck there that I'm not making a choice to actually leave this place. So I call it the frog in the pot syndrome. And this is, if you take a frog, you put it into a pot and you fill it with water, and you increase the stove's plate. The water gets warmer and warmer. This frog stays inside, and the water may even later boil, and the frog does not jump out because it constantly just adjusts to the current conditions. So I get used to these conditions, but this doesn't mean life is good. It just says I get used to it. And that's, I think, the challenge with many people is we just get used to how life is and we don't push the envelope to pursue, what is out there for us and the fact that we could be more of who we could be.
Right. All right. When you say that the example with the frog, it conjures up images of when I was a child and I used to go to the circus, and there used to be, the circus elephants, and I was always amazed as a little child how this huge animal could be tied to such a small pole,
Yeah,
and then not just and have the power just to lift its head up and walk away, but it would never do that. I
yeah,
used to ask my mom, I says, how come the elephant doesn't escape? Are you sure it's not going to escape, Mom? I was kind of scared because
yeah.
I'm looking at this little pole, and in my little mind, it's easy to break away from that, right? But as I learned throughout life is that elephant probably from a very young age was tied to that pole where it wasn't strong enough to break away. And then at some stage, it just accepted that as the norm. And as it
Absolutely.
grew and became stronger, even though it's physically stronger, and he could probably rip that out just by inhaling, taking a breath.
Absolutely.
In his mind, there's that ceiling, so he doesn't even attempt to. Now, is that what you were referring to with the example with the frog and what happens to us as human beings?
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. You actually used a fantastic example, and I can so much relate to my own life as a younger person, where I experienced a lot of inferiority issues. And the bottom line of all of this was just, I didn't understand myself, and I didn't think or believe that I could be capable of more than what I was. And I grew up in very humble circumstances. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and there weren't many opportunities. And I grew up on the wrong side of town. And many people made me know that I'm come from the wrong side of town. And my problem was I believed that. And that's the big problem. You can only be what you believe. You can never be more than what the sum total of your thinking is. And if you don't change your thinking, you can never change your life. And therefore, we got to become aware of our own personal wiring. How does my thinking impact me, my life, and my performance? How I think about myself is that will determine who eventually I become. So inferiority at 30 was almost like a prison bar. These neuron pathways that told me that I am not okay and I'm not good enough, it became a prison bar that made me be stuck where I was. And before, I've not broken out of that prison and become set free to discover the real truth and realize all the things I believe about myself, that I can't work with people, that I can't talk to people, were things that were not true. I had the potential, I just didn't have the skill, and low self-esteem imprisoned me to believe I can't do this. But when you break with those mindsets and you discover the potential and you choose to do something about it, the world changes for you and you are a liberated person. And I believe that, my journey is the journey of many people. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work, because I know what it did for me. And if that is how this work can liberate me and help me to today live a passionate and fulfilled life, it is up for the taking for everyone else as well.
Okay, I mean, I think it's fitting that you just spoke a little bit about your past life. So let's just take that opportunity because we're coming to the end of the show in a few short moments. Let's just talk a little bit about how you discovered your solution. How did it come about, Andre? Let everybody know what it's actually called, and what was your inspiration for creating it.
You know what, Stuart? The University of Life happened to me. I started out as being a teacher, and I've always had an interest in how the human mind works. And instinctively, I always had some gut feel that there had to be more than just what I was at that time. But then I lost my job and I was forced to think, so what am I going to do now? And in that process, in that turbulence of losing my job, you are challenged with, is it my fault? Who am I? What is it that I have to offer to the world? What is it that I would like to do? All those questions that I experience, but questions are the tools with which you discover the truth. So it's often a very good place to be. It's sometimes a very hard place to be, but a good place to start asking all these questions and to start pursuing the answers to those questions. So, not having other options, and having always been interested in the brain, I started pursuing further studies and also, my interest in the brain and how it works. And as I was doing this, I was constantly always looking for what is my potential, who is it that I can be. But that journey opened up my whole mind to start thinking, how can I build a system for others that can do the same for them what it did for me? And that is how NeuroLink started and how this journey of the past 23 years, where we've built a system, a neuroscience system for people to identify who they are, their unique neurological design and the factors that influence it. And once they get this, they become liberated to become that person. That has been our passion and our purpose and our reason for existence. So, it was good for me that this happened because that is what put this all in my awareness and what eventually drove me not to just for myself overcome many issues, but also help others build a system that can help others to learn the same thing. So it was just life happening to me, and having lost my job in retrospect now, I realize was the beginning of me finding my own personal purpose, which is a good thing.
Excellent. Now, Andre, before we give everybody an opportunity to find out how they can get in touch with you, just one final question. For all the people out there, such as workers and leaders and managers, parents, students, and even children who want to discover their unique neurological design and optimize their brain performance so that they can become more emotionally intelligent and that everybody else around them can benefit from that, what would be your absolute best piece of advice to get started with that?
I believe people must start with themselves, and they must start with the accurately identifying the potential that is within them. And who I was at 30, who I thought I was at 30, and who I am now are two totally different people. And that's why I say it is very important that we have to become accurate about who we are. And that's why I have designed an assessment, which we call a brain profile assessment, that is online. People can go to our website. They can do the assessment. There are even some other free brain fitness assessments on our website, but they can go there. They can do the assessment, and it's going to just start clarifying for them what are the factors that impact or sometimes limit, or that can also optimize their brain performance, and what are the 7 factors that make up their neurological design and who they are as a unique person. And I would highly recommend that people just invest into their brain, invest into their own future, their own development, because that is the key to becoming more of who you could be. Is when you accurately identify potential and then start developing appropriate skills that goes with that, so you become good, competent, good, great, and excellent.
Spoken like a true educator, a true advocate, and a good-looking guy.
Wow! I appreciate you saying that. I was not expecting that, but I do take the compliment, Stuart. And you're not doing too bad yourself, man.
Well, thank you very much, but I just have to call it like it is. I mean, you're not just an expert on your in your field of knowledge. You're a good-looking guy. So, ladies, please if you want to get hold of André Vermeulen, how do people, besides the ladies, also the gentlemen, also the schools, the universities, the companies that you work with, how do they get hold of you? How can they connect with you, André?
Stuart, people can connect with me on social platforms, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. There's an André Vermeulen Facebook. There's an André Vermeulen website. There's a NeuroLink Facebook, a NeuroLink website. And if they there connect with me, I will gladly continue the conversation with them.
Perfect. André, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come here today and to share these insights, to share these tips on the problems and the obstacles and the hidden pitfalls that your listeners and our listeners have when they are out there trying to discover their unique neurological design and to optimize their brain performance so that they can become more emotionally intelligent. André, any final thoughts before we go?
You know what, Stuart, thank you very much for this opportunity today. You know, it was truly a blessing meeting you. And, you know, I really say to people always that if it weren't for people like you and platforms like what you offer, and even to our listeners out there today, then I would not have a purpose. So because you exist, I exist. And thank you for that and the privilege of having been on your program. And, you know, if I can really just from my side conclude is to say, make yourself a priority and pursue the giant within. And there is not going to be anything more fulfilling for you in life than discovering really who are you and then trying to become the best that you can possibly be. Because if we do that, I truly believe we will also then complete the work that we were designed to do before our time is up. So that would be my message. And again, Stuart, thank you. It's indeed been a privilege getting to know you and being on your program.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.